Welcome to No Things Considered. We've got a lot to get to today, so let's get right to it. First of all, former Deputy Director of the FBI, Andrew McCabe, a report came out on his firing and why exactly he left. Turns out, he was let go because he leaked documents to the Wall Street Journal that were not supposed to be leaked, that would benefit him specifically. That's interesting to use the taxpayer's dime to help yourself out. Sounds like somebody else that has been in the news lately as well. Oh, this guy! Yeah, Jim Comey. Well, Jim Comey went to ABC and had an interview that you guys will all, I'm sure, not tune in to watch on Sunday night with George Stephanopoulos. Now, before we go any further, let's remember that George Stephanopoulos was one of the former campaign directors and press secretary, comms director, press secretary for President Clinton. This guy has been embedded with them for a very long time, so he kind of probably doesn't like Donald Trump. But don't tell anybody that. He sat down with James Comey, and, well, they went through some interesting questions, at least in the preview.
In this particular part of the dossier, unverified. Still unverified, by the way?
Yes. So far as when I got fired, it was unverified.
Did you tell him that the Steele dossier had been financed by his political opponents?
No. I didn't even think I used the term Steele dossier. I just talked about additional material.
But did he have a right to know that?
That had been financed by his political opponents? I don't know the answer to that.
Comey does know the answer to that, and the answer is yes, he did have a right to know that it was funded by his political opponents, and Comey knew that when he presented it to him. Seems like a thing, don't you think? That should have been covered. A little shady there from Comey. No, don't worry about it. It keeps going, and spoiler alert, all they talk about is the P-tape in the preview.
And he interrupted very defensively and started talking about it. You know, do I look like a guy who needs hookers? And I assumed he was asking that rhetorically. I didn't answer that, and I just moved on and explained, sir, I'm not saying that we credit this, I'm not saying we believe it.
It's interesting that he says that they're not crediting it and they don't believe it. Because what he says in the rest of the interview when he talks about this makes it sound like he believes it. In fact, he starts to sound like the author of that Fire and Fury book that was complete crap. But, you know, if you believe it and you have fun, to steal a line from SNL, then it must be real. People apparently forgot about figures of speech as well. Do I look like a guy who needs to hire hookers? Well, maybe I do, but Donald Trump doesn't. The guy's basically lived a playboy lifestyle for years, and that's what he was saying there. But, oh, James Comey, oh, Captain Morality there. He's the one that's going to judge people. That keeps going. You're gonna get angry at this.
How weird was that briefing?
Really weird. It was almost an out-of-body experience for me. I was floating above myself, looking down, saying, you're sitting here briefing the incoming president of the United States about prostitutes in Moscow.
Oh, he was just floating above himself. He was so holy, and he was looking down on it. Hey, by the way, I wonder how they felt. It was Mueller back in the day when they had to brief Obama about prostitutes in Chicago. Next clip. Let's forget I said that, huh?
January 27th. At a private dinner in the White House, President Trump raises the issue again.
Says he may want me to investigate it to prove that it didn't happen. And then he says something that distracted me, because he said, you know, if there's even a 1% chance my wife thinks that's true, that's terrible.
Now, see, that's another figure of speech. If there's even a 1% chance that my wife thinks that that's true, then it's a problem for me. It should be just a 0, nothing. I don't want her to be bothered by any of this stuff. That's a figure of speech, but leave it to James Comey to take it to the next level of douchiness and judginess, because he took it as something much more than that.
And I remember thinking, how could your wife think there's a 1% chance you were with prostitutes peeing on each other in Moscow? I'm a flawed human being, but there's literally 0 chance that my wife would think that was true.
That's what Donald Trump was saying. But that's tough for people who are trying to make a story out of nothing and sell books, isn't it? Please, keep going, Jim. We can't wait to hear more about what you have to say about the president. And, of course, just the P-tape.
Did you believe his denial?
Honestly, never thought these words would come out of my mouth, but I don't know whether the current president of the United States was with prostitutes peeing on each other in Moscow in 2013. It's possible.
It's possible. See, it's possible is the way to say, I want you to believe something even though there's no evidence of it. It's possible that aliens visited the Pilgrims during Thanksgiving. They do it every year on Sci-Fi Channel. They have that alien, whatever, uncovered aliens stories or whatever. There's no evidence that it didn't happen, so it's a possibility that it did happen. And that's exactly what's happening here with Jim Comey. Don't be shocked. It's possible that Jim Comey's a douchebag. There's no evidence to the contrary. That's how it goes. The president weighed in on this, saying the following on Twitter this morning. James Comey is a proven leaker and liar. Virtually everyone in Washington thought he should be fired for the terrible job he did until he was, in fact, fired. He leaked classified information for which he should be prosecuted. He lied to Congress under oath. He's a weak and untruthful slime ball. I'll stop you right there. If you or anyone else went on national television and basically knocked someone's marriage like he just did, like there's some sort of problem between Melania and Trump, don't you think you'd be called an untruthful slime? I'd say a lot worse things if it was something about my wife. Not married, by the way, ladies. But that's nothing. And people blew up. Oh my God, I can't believe he said untruthful slime ball. I would have been swearing. This guy is literally, there's a fighting words that, my wife would never doubt me. I don't know why yours would doubt you. Clearly you're a terrible person. Give me a break. Everything is so ridiculous at this point. Jim Comey and George Stephanopoulos. Let's switch topics to something that'll get my blood pressure to lower just a little bit. Mike Pompeo went in for his hearings yesterday to talk about potentially becoming Secretary of State. And well, Democrats took the opportunity to hit every topic that has nothing to do with being Secretary of State, but it's like a specious it kind of touches it, but it doesn't. That's what they do at these hearings. You know how it goes. Let's go first to Jeanne Shaheen. It's a cool name for a senator. Senator Jeanne Shaheen, asking questions to Mike Pompeo.
You swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. As you pointed out, you've taken that oath 6 times. You've graduated from Harvard Law School, magna cum laude. You're an attorney. Do you think Special Counsel Mueller's investigation is a witch hunt?
You're a really smart guy. You went to law school at Harvard, and you did great, and you're brilliant, and you've sworn an oath to protect us against enemies, foreign and domestic. And by domestic, Jeanne Shaheen means Donald Trump, by the way. That's exactly what she's referring to. Do you think it's a witch hunt? And Mike Pompeo said, I'm not answering that. And he's actually pretty brilliant by not answering any of these questions. By the way, she goes on to ask questions about Russian collusion and interference, and he shuts her down in a way you probably didn't expect for him to shut her down with, facts and logic about how nasty we've been to the Russians since Donald Trump has taken office.
The largest expulsion of 60 folks was from this administration. This administration announced a nuclear posture review that has put Russia on notice that we're going to recapitalize our deterrent force. The Russians met their match, and a couple hundred Russians were killed. The list of actions that this administration has taken, I'm happy to walk through each of them, but I don't want to take up much more time.
And I appreciate
the list
that.
is pretty long, ma'am.
So Mike Pompeo responding to whether or not there's Russian interference by saying, hey, we've killed the Russians. We've actually killed them. We've thrown them out of the country and then we killed them. So not the same guys that we threw out of the country, but we got some mercenaries. It's the first time we've heard that actually from this administration. So we working with the Russians? Trump would be a terrible Russian agent, by the way, if he were one. He's not, though. So enough of that. Let's go on to more news. Cory Booker's got new glasses. Oh, boy, is he stylish and getting ready for 2020. Are they clear? Are they white? Boy, they are just not big enough for his head, I can tell you that. But there he is, looking serious at the hearings yesterday, and boy, was he going to bring it home against Mike Pompeo with a lot of talk about nothing that has to do with being Secretary of the State.
Do you know Frank Gaffney?
Yes, I do.
And you've been on his show dozens of times. He has talked about Muslims should be, who abide by the adherence of their faith should be considered, should be tried for acts of sedition. Did you remain silent when you were on his show? Did you ever question? Because I have a lot of his statements here.
Let me tell you something. If I'm ever appointed to office and have to sit in front of a panel of people, and the standard by which I'm judged is you were on someone's show who said something, or you worked with someone who said something. I've worked with some of the most depraved comics in the world, and I've been on a lot of crazy people's shows. In fact, one person that I worked with at one point was accused of murder. Am I held accountable for that? No. Nor should Mike Pompeo be held accountable for a host on a show that he was on. But in case anybody's wondering, I hereby denounce at this moment every conversation and every statement ever made by anyone I've ever known. I denounce it all. Blanket denounce. I don't care what it is. I don't care, well, other than stuff where they say that I'm attractive. But I denounce it all. Because that's what you're supposed to do now. You're supposed to actually keep up and keep track with everyone you've been on a program with. Just in case you get in front of a panel and you have to remember to keep track on those people, like a host of a show that may have gone off the rails after you went on their show. That's not, Mike Pompeo's got other things to do. He's got bigger fish to fry. God, doesn't mean he believes that stuff. Oh, by the way, Cory Booker doesn't stop there.
What about Bridget Gabriel? Do you know her?
I do.
Someone who runs an organization that has been considered a hate group by the Anti-Defamation League and the Southern Poverty Law Center. Were you silent? Did you ever call her out on her remarks that are hateful or bigoted?
You know, I bet Mike Pompeo goes to a guy named Mike to get sandwiches made too, and if Mike whistles at women on his time off while they're walking down the street, does Mike Pompeo have to answer to that as well? I mean, who washes Mike Pompeo's car? Does cleaning people say, like, racial slurs once in a while? Is he supposed to keep up on every individual he's ever come in contact with? No, he's not. That's completely illogical. And then Mike Pompeo, being as brilliant as he is, tries to actually answer and say that he's denounced the stuff. But that's not good enough for Cory Booker, as you'll see in the next clip. Because he's got a lot of boxes to tick before he's finished with his couple of minutes of questions.
When it comes
Senator, if I might, I have called out. We had a terrible fellow in Kansas named Fred Phelps.
Sir, I have a minute left.
I called him out.
I have a minute left because I do want to give you a chance to speak about your comments on gay and lesbians.
Oh, got to get to the gays and lesbians. That has a lot to do with being Secretary of State, of course, because, you know, he started to actually answer that he's been denouncing the people who said things that were inappropriate. So Cory doesn't want to actually hear the answers. He just wants to talk. Take it away.
And so people in the State Department, I met some in Africa.
Oh, see, look, Cory Booker, he wanted to make sure that he mentioned he's been to Africa. He had to make sure he got that box tick. He's been there. He's probably thought he's been to Wakanda too, but don't ask him questions about countries and things he's been to. Forget about that. Next.
Right.
Do you believe that gay sex is a perversion? Yes or no?
Senator, if I can,
yes or no, sir. Do you believe that gay sex is a perversion? Because that's what you said here in one of your speeches. Yes or no? Do you believe gay sex is a perversion?
Oh my God, that's actual questions for the future Secretary of State. You really need to know that. I mean, come on. He's a social conservative. You know what he believes. Dare you to ask that to a fundamentalist Muslim, though. Dare you. I dare you. I dare you. Because you won't. You'll only ask it to Christians, which there's a subtle racism there if you really think about it, or a subtle religious discrimination there. Because you never ask that question of anyone other than Christians and conservatives. Oh, God. Let's change subjects, shall we? Let's move on to my favorite, Alex Jones. Oh, boy, was Alex in the news recently, because on his show, and this could be very much so the clip of the day here, he talks about how many women he had sex with before the age of 16. That guy. Get him, Alex. Brain Force Plus. No, really.
When I was 16, I'd already been in the fights, all the big rituals. I'd already had probably, I hate to brag, so I'm not bragging, it's actually shameful, probably 150 women or more. That's conservative. I'd had over 150 women. I'd already been in fights with full-grown men. I was already dating college girls by the time I was 15 years old.
I have no comment on that. He's got a little chart there with people on it that he's drawing, that he's such a genetic jackhammer, that Alex Jones. He was slamming women at 16 and college girls at 15, and he's a real man. He's been in lots of fights. People go to him for a news source. If you go to him for a news source, come on, guys. Come on, just stop. He gives us one of these gems once a month. Holy moly, guys. Well, that's it for this night's No Things Considered. We're here every night of the week, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you like the show, click the like button, click the smiley face button, click the share button, and please don't brag about how many women you slept with, because We all know it wasn't that many. Come on, man. 16. Just close the show between Booker and